oh boy, do we have a good episode for you guys this week. We sat down with Nissim Baruch Black. Formerly Damian Jamohl Black, born in Seattle, Washington. His journey is insane. It's incredible. You probably maybe have heard pieces of it, but we were able to sit down with him and just hear it all from A to Z.
He's not our first ger that we had on this show, but he's definitely someone who's super famous.
Who's our first ger?
Amari.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Sorry, Amari. Amari's listening to this and he's like, what the heck? How do you forget about me?
Yeah, at me.
So, Nissim was great. And you should know, I always, I didn't know that much about him. Like, okay, it's obvious. Like, I heard in the news, he used to be a rapper. Now he's a singer. And I'm like, okay, nice story. But I was really personally very moved by this conversation that we had with him.
Yeah, he's an open book. And enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the Meaningful People Podcast, the podcast where we talk to people who are
meaningful.
Yeah, that sounds good.
We have the honor, the pleasure of sitting here with Nissim Black. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming in.
Thank
Came
you.
all the way from Eretz Yisrael for this podcast, which is we appreciate that. That's real dedication. Making all our other guests who can't come from 50 miles away look bad.
So we want to talk to you about your background, which I'm sure you've spoken about a lot, but not Pina. I didn't get to hear about it from you.
Right.
So first off, you weren't born as Nissim Black.
No, I was not born as Nissim Black.
What was your name?
My name originally was Damian Jamohl Black. Now, interestingly enough, for the first 10 minutes of my life, my name was Joshua. Joshua Black. Joshua Kroon, I think, actually.
No way.
And there's a machlokas in the family of whether or not my father changed my name or whether or not my godmother changed my name, So I just leave it alone. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. She told me it was her. He told me it was him,
Mm-hmm.
Who actually did it, I don't know. Either way it goes, Joshua was probably a better pick, but whatever the case.
Damian. That's a cool name.
Damian Jamohl. DJ.
Yeah.
You want by DJ? No.
No. I wanted to. I always had a dream of going by DJ just because it was sound sick back then. Didn't work out.
DJ Black.
Nobody went for it.
So how did everyone refer to you, as Damian?
Yeah, everybody used to call me Damian. Then when I got older, they called me Black or D. Used to call me D, And my mother, it was Damian Jamohl when she was mad at me. Damian Jamohl, that's how he better get up these stairs, boy, that type of thing. But that was it.
Could you give us a little more context of where you grew up and what?
So I grew up in Seattle, Washington. My mother and my father were both hip hop artists. They actually pioneered rap in Seattle. They were part of the first rap group. My mother was part of the first female rap group. My father was a part of the first male rap group, and also too. Sold a lot of drugs, unfortunately. I grew up in that era. The era of the 1980s, mid-1980s was the crack era. That was the crack epidemic. It really started hitting the streets. In fact, I'm a crack baby. My mother smoked crack until I think she was at least 5 months with me. I don't think at the time, back in that time, it was really such a thing where you see now what it's done to the communities and how people become strung out. It was a very new and fresh drug that nobody really knew, where it would go. But there's a lot of people like that. So the 1980s was really that time. And I remember just hearing from my father, he had a house where he had a manufacturing facility. You know what I'm saying? It was a
good
very
businessman.
it was very serious business, but he was very careful also to maintain a regular job, in terms of so they would never suspect. He had houses. He would never ride in cars with things that had him in there. He would take a taxi following the cars that had things in it.
But for the kids, you knew. Yeah. You knew what was going on.
I didn't know what was going on until I got a little bit older. So my parents split when I was 2, my mother and my biological father. And she, she started dating or, eventually got married to my stepfather, who really was a dad to me also, but he was in the same business, you know what I mean? At a different level to some degree, but he was in the same business. So I grew up seeing that, the trafficking in and out. We were battle ran by the FBI, I think when I was 8 years old. So I watched crazy things happen in my house, crazy things happen in my house from from the drug side, infidelity side, just like crazy things I seen growing up as a kid. And it was one of those things where like my parents were always, I mean, to some degree, they prided themselves on not hiding anything from me, you know, and they were young too. My parents were young. My mother had me, she was like 18 years old. So when, you know, which is really young for that world, you know what I'm saying? Like in the Goyish world, people not getting married, you know,
18,
really, 18
like 3 already.
So that was very, very young, considering that world. So, you know, I sort of grew up with my parents. So I got to see the evolution in them. I remember we lived in Bellevue when we moved outside of like the, you know, the neighborhood. We started moving, it was like east. And they had come back home from a shootout. You know, one of my dad's friends had died. And, you know, everybody came in the house is bleeding, got bandages, everybody's been shot somewhere, whatever, like a shootout. Like, that's traumatic stuff as a kid. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Even as an
like,
adult, it's traumatic.
as an adult, you're like crazy. But like as a kid, like seeing that, you know? And so nothing was ever really hidden from me. So the natural thing for me was to adapt and become a part of my environment, right? So by 9 years old, I was already smoking weed. By the time I was 12 years old, I was already running with the street gang, Gangsta Disciple Nation, also known as BGD. Really, I think they're like two separate things, whatever. Originated in Chicago. So, which all these things happen like even under the radar. Like there's so much going on in my house. Like my parents didn't notice I was coming home high every day, you know what I'm saying? Because everybody was high. So it wasn't like, you know, noticing anything else that was going on. And my house was the spot. There's 30, 40 people in and out of my house all day long. So a lot of things that I was doing even slipped under the radar.
9 is young.
9 is very young.
That's like
9 is very, I was third grade. I was in the third grade.
I have a 9-year-old nephew.
Yeah.
Can't really imagine him getting high.
Yeah. Don't imagine that. So, but you know, by the time like, you know, middle school years, I was very, very, very deep into that. I was already selling weed by then. And then by the time I was 13, at 13, I was really started. This was like, you know, so crazy because that's bar mitzvah age.
Right.
And so like, I was like at this place of really yearning and searching for God inside, like on Epidemic. I remember I was just telling someone, I got so upset with God that I didn't know who he was. I like had this really deep yearning innate inside to know who God is. And I felt like he was like not showing it to me. So I like, okay, so I'm on Satan's team now. I'm going to go be a Satanist. I didn't actually do it, but like there was this song by this rapper DMX who just passed away recently. Yeah. So he just had a song back then called Damian. My name was Damian. And it was about this conversation between him and a demon or something like that. It's like, God, this is my new anthem. You know what I'm saying? This is like, and it was all because I was angry because I didn't know who God was. So I had an uncle who, you know, I guess I should have mentioned this, but my first introduction to religion was Islam. My grandfather was Sunni Muslim, so that was the only type. Now, he himself was like not the shining example. He had spent most of his life in prison, where I think he actually ended up converting to Islam in prison. So when he came to live with us, he was on a probation period. He ended up violating his parole and ended up having to go back to prison. Eventually, he died there. So, but he introduced me to Islam. I prayed with him 5 times a day. I knew a little Arabic as a kid also too. I knew all the prayers in Arabic as a kid.
You still do?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I don't remember nothing. I was trying to like sometimes when I hear it on the thing, I can start remember. I don't remember it.
That's a blessing.
I mean, yeah, it is a blessing. It could have been all the weed smoke also too I was doing it. You know? So anyway.
So you grew up with a spiritual soulfulness in the home.
But even as a kid, it wasn't in the house. There was nothing going around so spiritual except for that encounter with my grandfather. But even as a kid, I had something inside of me that like was searching already. I already wanted to know who God was. I had this as a kid. It was like something,
it's unique.
You know, it was just very, very unique. There was nothing going on around me that could have led to something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I don't know what it was. And I almost felt like all my acting out when I was a kid all that. I couldn't say. Now I could say, well, my environment and all these other things, but I can't really attribute it to that because I was used to my environment. My environment was my normal life. It wasn't like I'm acting up because I know that there's some better life for me somewhere. If I was I didn't know any.
That's
of
a very
that.
interesting perspective. You weren't really acting up. You were just living.
I was just living. So it wasn't for me. Like, it was just like, this is what we do in our neighborhoods, and eventually, whatever. So I was running away from home, everything. So at 13, that same year, I got expelled from public school. I got expelled from the district as a threat, the firearm.
Oh, is that easy to do? I was going to ask.
Is it easy to get expelled from the school district? No, it's not. It's not. I mean, that year, I think I was in the principal's office more than the principal was. You know what I mean? It was just sort of like, I had a friend like that also too one time in high school. Like, he skipped class so much they used to just send him home. So like, I remember one time he was in the hallway and he seen security. It was like, even before class, it was like, go home, Royce, go home. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, it was like, as soon as I came, it was like, all right, go to the principal's office. You know what I mean? He already starting. We're all chemically imbalanced at 13. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I was kind of tripping out. But
how do you think you would have been in yeshiva at 13?
Oh yeah, I would have got kicked out of yeshiva for sure.
Kal v'chomer, if you got kicked out of public school,
you never know.
You never know. Maybe I would have used my kochos differently. You know what I'm saying?
So at what point did you, I guess, hit rock bottom that you're like, this is just not the path for me?
Right, like Islam, you were practicing, you were praying 5 times a day.
Right. No, but by this time, for sure not. I wasn't doing anything. I was so. Because I had an uncle who was also Muslim, my grandfather was already in prison at this time. I did hit this rock bottom. A few different things happened. I was out one night with my friends, and we had these new walkie-talkies. This is so embarrassing to tell you now. We had these new walkie-talkies that we had all just got, and like we wanted to, the Nextel thing, and we wanted to test them out. How we test them out? We were going around the neighborhood, breaking people's windows with rocks. This is what we were doing with our life. Right? Yeah, young, just that's how we did, and avoiding the police. So how are we doing it?
How do you test the walkie-talkie by breaking windows?
Because the police start looking for us, and we're like telling each other.
Oh my gosh,
that's a really twisted way to test a walkie-talkie.
Right, so we're running and all this other stuff, and Shem pays back tenfold. What happened? A lot of my boys that were with me that night, they came to stay at my house, which is on the completely other side of town. Like, usually a lot of rival gangs, and nobody would ever come over. So police obviously wouldn't think we're going to be on the other side of town. So we went back to my house, and and a friend of mine was, sleeping downstairs, and a lamp fell over and caught the blanket on fire.
Oh my God.
Which eventually led to the rest of the couch. He runs out, the rest of them run out, and the flames are happening so fast they're all afraid to go back in. It just so happened that I happened to sleep upstairs in my sister's room, and I was asleep there. I started coughing. I had really, my asthma was kind of mild, but I had asthma. Right. So it didn't take much smoke for me to start coughing and hacking or whatever. And by the time I wake up and realize what's happening, the whole house is smoking like super. So I banged on the door for my parents, got them out. I'm telling you, like 5 minutes, we watched the whole house go up in flames. Gosh. The whole entire house. And as the house is burning, what am I hearing? Breaking glass in the windows. Whoa. The glass is just breaking. And at each break, I'm hearing my parents scream and cry even more and more and more. And I'm like, even then I realized God was like, that was like a payback. That was like really serious.
When you turn around, you see Royce chucking rocks.
So, we had some crazy experiences.
But that was that stuck out to you as
one of the things for me, because along with that, I ended up, like I was expelled already that year. I ended up going to this school where, like, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's very high of everybody in there at least going or having been in juvenile detention center, and for sure Vadai, they end up in the county. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just like the place where they sent, in terms of behavior, they sent the worst of the worst. So I was in this school fighting, having my anger management. I'm mad at God. My uncle, starts introducing, but my uncle said at the same time, it's like all these people I was introduced to that were also involved in religion also lived a double life. It wasn't like they were just religious, but they were also still selling drugs and different things like that. But I was really intrigued by that. You know what I mean? I was really intrigued by the God piece of it. So I did start, going with him also to meetings. I started praying with him. He had a somewhat of a different take on Islam, so it was a little bit different. But my biological father, by this time, it did a crazy turnaround in his life. He's now a professor, theologian, and a pastor, and he heads an addiction program. He used to be a drug, now he heads the addiction program. It's like crazy turnaround. But one of the things that he focused on during his doctorate, he focused on etymology, and specifically the conversation between Christians and Muslims. So I had a conversation with him. I remember, I told him, what I was learning, different things like that. And we had a little bit of not really a shtickle debate, but it was something where he was just informing me of things. I remember hanging up on the phone. I fell to my knees and I cried. I cried 13 years old. I was crying, and I started screaming to God. And I said to God, I want to know you. I want to know you. I remember screaming this. So fast forward a little bit after this, I made my first record. I recorded my first time at 13, two professional songs with the producer who was well known in Seattle. And then that got a little buzz. So one of my friends, he invited me to this other hip hop program at the Union Gospel Mission, which is a Christian center. So I started going there that year. And this place became a safe haven. I really say still to this day, going there saved my life from where I was going, because it was not in a pretty place, And this is this tug of war of like as I'm saying it, I'm thinking about it, just like I can remember back to how bad I was yearning for some type of like relationship with God during this time. But I was like being a knucklehead, fighting and running around with gangs. You know what I'm saying? I robbed somebody before. Like, it was like crazy stuff that you think about, like that on the inside. I always knew this wasn't me. I always knew it wasn't me. You understand what I'm saying?
You knew that you were rebelling.
Yeah, I knew that I was rebelling. At the same time,
you grew up that was your life.
Right,
so
exactly.
What were you rebelling against?
Exactly. And later on, you look back and you say, wow, you know what I'm saying? Hashem, I knew you for a long time. Yeah. Inside. There was something inside. So this organization, which was really helpful for me, it became like my second home. Eventually, they invited me to camp. I ended up going with them on like this missionary camp or whatever, which was amazing because you get to just be a kid. You know what I'm saying? It's different when you grow up in that type of environment. You're not just a kid.
And there was structure, I imagine.
Yeah, there was structure, and it was a crazy structure though. I'm not gonna lie. The Christian camps are dope. Like,
really?
Yeah, man.
What could the Jewish camps learn from
man,
them?
It's a lot, and really? I got a lot to get because I was on I eventually ended up on the program team for these camps. But I'm telling you, like, like I said, Christianity as a whole doesn't have the structure, and it doesn't have what it takes to maintain a person's ability to constantly grow. There's a lot of, for lack of a better term, aliyahs and very big yeridas in that religion, right? But there's a panini aspect of it where it's very, very pure and very true of how many people are actually God-seeking. You know what I mean over there? Right. What I mean, like, because these camps, what happened to me even at this camp is there was like a 7-day period of this guy speaking. And the whole thing was like a lead up to his end of his life story where he gave his life to God or to, who. Yeah. And so it eventually ended up happening that at the end, the whole thing was like a setup because at the end there's this massive altar call. And you see these kids from 8 years old all the way up to, being high schoolers coming up crying at this altar. Everybody feels so emotionally distraught and like wanting to give their lives over to God. Now, okay, what's going to happen in a few weeks? They're going to go back and end up doing the same shit that they was doing before. But the truth is that they enter into a moment to where they feel like everything's God-centered. And it's like this amazing experience that they built based on the way that they structure these camps. You know what I mean? So I had that experience. So I came back a Christian, very staunch. I picked up a Bible and I was in it. I highlighted the Bible so much that you didn't even need there was no reason for a highlighter anymore. I highlighted the whole thing. I became a complete Bible thumper.
You were devout.
Yeah, I was
so
very,
you're
very devout.
onto another religion at this point.
Onto another religion now. And that was. So I guess what makes the whole thing easier was that I already knew what it was like to go up, or to go back, I would say. I followed chronological order. I went from, Islam to Christianity to Yiddishkeit, really in chronological order. But it was the searching. It was always looking for the truth, trying to find God in his purest form. My music is the way that it sounds, and it can even be competitive in the non-Jewish world because I'm after a certain authenticity. My neshama craves authenticity. Like when I do something, I'm not trying to do it halfway. You know what I'm saying? You know, people ask me, why didn't you become like conservative reform? Like I wasn't even thinking about any of these things. It wasn't a buffet for me. What type of Yiddishkeit do you want over here? Like, you know, I'm searching for Hashem. Where's Hashem at? You understand what I'm saying? That's what I came for. I'm looking for wherever Hashem is at. So that, I guess, sort of was like, I look at all of these things as it was a stepping stool to get to the next thing, to the next level of emes, you know?
So at what point in the, I guess, in the Christianity portion of your life, did it just hit that point where you're like, this isn't it?
So, like I said, over there you have some aliyahs and you have big yeridas. So what happened was my music had made it to the desk of an A&R, like my very positive, like, type rap, but it was still very contemporary. I would even say it was more gospel even type thing. But they really liked me in this record label, Virgin Records, I think it was at the time. And I started talking to an A&R from over there, which is a talent scout. And what they were looking for was more gangster rap. That's just what was in. 50 Cent was like the biggest thing in rap at that time.
Right.
And that's what they wanted. So that led to me, after seeing a substantial amount being offered to me, changing it, like really going back into the gangster thing. And what was funny about that was like, I'm doing it thinking like, okay, I'm gonna just pull this off, you know, and then still be the real me. And it's not true. I couldn't be the real me after that, you know what I mean? Because everything is like, you have to get back in the character, and then all the people that was around me started to change or whatever. And it got so deep that I got confused about who I was also. I didn't know who I was, you know? I was already dating my wife, thank God. I met my wife when I was 17 already. Or we met when we were 16. We started dating when we were 17. And she hasn't been able to get rid of me ever since. But because of that, she was really a good girl. You know, my wife was a good girl. I had to go to church to get her. I was never a churchgoer, even as a Christian, because Sundays were for football. You understand?
Right.
So, but
Sundays for the boys.
Yeah, but even to go get her, I had to go to church in order to get her.
Seahawks?
Yeah, Seahawks for sure.
Okay.
And if you have anything negative to say, right now is the time to hold your peace. Okay? No, I'm joking. Listen, I don't follow
as much. It's not a good move to pass the ball on the goal line.
Yeah, whatever.
So okay, so you went to, so you're saying your wife, or at that point your future wife, was that anchor that helped you get out of it?
Sure, 1,000%. It's like this thing where it's this constant thing, and Hashem keep reminding me, she always like keeps me out of trouble, even still today. You know what I mean? But she definitely was the anchor for me, because around her I was able to be myself. You understand?
Yeah.
And around everybody else, you're not yourself, you know, and being able to have somebody that you're going to always be able to, you can't front, you know, there's somebody that's close to you. You can't put on these facades and different things like that if you got a good wife, you know. So with her, I was able to be that way and be the real me and around everybody else. And it didn't hit me until, you know, I ended up losing my mother from an overdose. And that was very hard for me. I was 19. My mother was 37 when she passed away. My wife, like, dropped out of school, everything. She came to live with us and helped my whole family while my, you know, after my mother passed away. So that just shows her strength and her resilience and her dedication to me as a person and even to my family, right? And then shortly after that, you know, I went to New York. I tried to make other things happen and whatever. And then we ended up losing out on the deal because we took too long to ink it, and we tried to get some other things going. And then I put out the music all like independent. And the reporters and people that I were talking to afterwards was like, man, you're such a like nice guy. Like I would have never expected, you know what I mean? And I'm like, what do you expect? You know what I'm saying? But they're listening to the music.
From the rap, yeah.
So they're not even really dealing with me on a personal level yet until they're sitting with me. But when they're hearing the music, they're like, this guy's a gangster, you know what I'm saying? So I want to meet with him, but I need security, you know what I mean? But which all of it was really, it wasn't real. A lot of the rap music's not like that. There's a lot of good guys out there that are, you know what I'm saying, playing a game.
Right.
But for me, when it kept being said to me, I'm just sort of like, made me hit a like evaluation mode. Like, what am I, you know what I'm saying? And I realized I'm coming to you in darkness, expecting for you to see light. You understand what I mean? And that was deep for me. So that was like when I really started, that was when it started working. My heart started working. My mind started working. Plus my mother, losing her was like, almost like emotionally paralyzed. You know what I mean? I didn't know. I felt like God put me in a submission. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't know what to do.
Were you more sad or were you more upset? Like
I was sad. I was broken. You know, it was so sad that like when you have just ground shaking losses like that, you know what I'm saying, that happen out of nowhere. Then you get to know what your ikamida is. Like what is it that's like really driving you? Are you really such an anger? Are you really macho? Are you really this this big Balgaiva, this or that? I was completely like, I was finished. Like when I say this, I've said it a lot of times, I wouldn't have wished it on the Sutton himself. I wouldn't have wished the pain that I was feeling. Like I was so broken. I didn't know what to do. Like I was so broken. And I don't think, you know, that a lot of the people, even that when they do turn angry or whatever, I don't even think they allow the time to sit for them to really catch their emotions. They just sort of are already, I had no anger towards anybody. I was just broken. I remember crying on my couch, and a lot of my friends, I was so oblivious to what went on. She died in my bed. I put her to bed. I noticed she was very, very, very sedated. She was high. And I grew up seeing her like that, you know, a good amount of my life. So usually you would think that, but it was something different this night. And I remember telling my wife to be, my girlfriend at the time, I told her, I said, I feel like one day she's not going to wake up. So, but after that morning, she died, right? So, and she didn't wake up. And so all my friends had switched out, you know, my bed and my sheets, flipped it over or whatever. And I slept on that mattress for years with my mother's blood on it. And I remember sitting on the couch crying, like hysterically. And some friends had come to sit with me and comfort me. And they had just lost their mother a few, like maybe 6 months prior or something like that to it. And I started asking them, when does it go away? Like, when is this, you know what I'm saying? Like, how long am I going to be feeling like this? And they're like, I don't think it ever goes away. I don't think it ever goes away, you know? And to some degree it doesn't. I mean, you grow, you get past it, but then it also doesn't, especially in a situation where later on you have children. My children don't, you know, they never got to meet my mother. And my daughter reminds me a lot of her also too, you know?
What do you think, if you could just picture your mother meeting your kids?
Yeah.
And seeing you guys now, what would she say?
Yeah, I think my mother being like in Eretz Yisrael right now, you know what I'm saying? I think so. She would have, you know, we were already, before she passed away, we're having a lot of God conversations, you know? It's an unfortunate situation for her because she was in a program. She did end up going to get help for her problem, but the problem that she was having was they were very, she felt that they were very insensitive to her because she wasn't on the hard white stuff, because it wasn't heroin or crack cocaine and it was pills, you know, she was addicted to narcotics. That epidemic hadn't really spread like that. So they were treating just like, okay, whatever, you just really need to get over it. So they were very strict with her, more than they were with other people that were in the program. So she, she felt like that, and she got kicked out of the program because she was late a couple of times. It was literally just she was late back, but she was doing good. She was off this stuff. And as soon as she came back home, it was like, boom, right back where you picked up from. And shortly after she got back home, she passed. So it was tough for her. But I think that because of those God conversations we were having and where she was at in her life, it would, you know, especially if she would have had the opportunity to stay in the program, but I think she definitely would have been on board to, like, you know, explore where I was going in life. She was so open to me, you know what I mean, in terms of that.
It's incredible. So at what point is the first your first interaction with Yiddishkeit?
Yiddishkeit. So I grew up in that's the question. That's the question. So I grew up in the Jewish neighborhood in Seward Park in Seattle, which is a very diverse neighborhood. It's not just a Jewish neighborhood, but that's where the largest concentration, I would say, of actually, the Orthodox community is. So I had seen them my whole entire life, pretty much. And I was very aware that they were Jewish people, but I didn't know anything about Judaism. So long story short, as I was saying about the deal, I ended up getting into a beef with another rapper, and that turned into a kill or be killed situation. My friend, after we got into a fight in a nightclub, my friend went up and tried to take his life, and he shot everything except for him, which sometimes is worse because then you can end up with more time. Or if you hit somebody, you don't kill him, attempted murder sometimes is worse than a murder. But in terms of timing and what happens to you prison-wise, especially if somebody's there to prosecute or testify against you. So he ended up going immediately. That turned into a high-speed chase, and he ended up going that night. But they had thought that I sent him to go and to kill him. You know what I'm saying? And so, their natural thing is they got to defend themselves. So they're going to try to come after me, And if now on my side, if I don't go and take him out, then he's going to come and take me out. And, here again, you get to this moment to where you're in that type of situation where your back's against the wall. It's like, what are you made of? What are you really about? Are you really about this lifestyle? I always say, people, if you want it, then it's going to come and you're going to get your opportunity. Your number will be called and you're going to get your opportunity to show if this is what you want. And for me, I realized that wasn't what I want. So I stayed home. I was praying, crying. I ended up having a conversation with him. He called me out of the blue, which was really nice. And we talked about it. And we got over it like men. Me and the other rapper.
Really?
And the other guy.
Wow.
Which is crazy because that's just like, I don't know if I would have called anybody. You know what I'm saying? And it just is what it is. Even though I was a guy who wouldn't want to hurt anybody, I just didn't know. So anyway, that was like the last straw for me of me saying like, this is too much. I don't want to be in this life.
You don't want to be in a situation where you might get killed.
Yeah, I don't want to be in this situation. I don't want to make music that makes me feel like, you know what I'm saying? I want to be in those circles. That was like the final straw for me. Where I was going, I had no idea. So I stayed home and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed.
You say you prayed?
Like really. I was praying. I was praying to God. I mean, I'd always pray to God. In English. Yeah, I was talking to God in English. For sure.
It wasn't Hebrew.
In my own words. Yeah, definitely didn't have any Hebrew at this time.
Maybe Arabic?
No. I was praying to God, just talking to him. And all of my prayers and, just thanking him for getting over the situation led me to wanting to pick up the Bible. Again, so I picked up regular Bible, Christian Bible. And I started reading it. And it was like normal. I'm just reading it. And then I started to like notice a lot with, the Jewish people. And I'm like, trying to figure out more, So I went to Rabbi Google. Now I'm on Google, and I'm trying to figure out, about the Jewish. Country, right? For sure. By the way, I'm looking over there for like, just stuff about faith, like about Christianity. So I started typing in origins of Christianity, like what was at the beginning, because I don't know any of this stuff, I just know what it is.
Wikipedia or Aish?
No, Chabad, of course. So I didn't even know about Aish yet. I was so I definitely did come across Chabad first. I don't know, which is weird because the Chabad was like one of the first things I seen. But even before I got there, what happened was I started watching videos on YouTube of scientists. It was creationist scientists versus atheist scientists, and I found the discussion like crazy, compelling, and I wanted to know. Somehow from that, I ended up going to a video that was called Zeitgeist Refuted. The Zeitgeist was a book basically trying to dismiss religion and dismiss ultimately Christianity and saying how it's just another pagan religion, and it does a comparison between that and all the other pagan deities and everything else. So I was very, very intrigued by the Zeitgeist Refuted. I'd never seen Zeitgeist, but Zeitgeist Refuted popped up. So I clicked it and I watched it. And it was basically a video agreeing with the Zeitgeist, but saying that, yes, but JC, he was Jewish. And of course, he didn't keep Christmas because he kept Passover, or he kept, you know what I'm saying, Sukkot, or he kept. And I'm like, hold on, what is all these things? They're like in the Bible. Like, how I've read the Bible so many times and I never paid attention to the fact that there was these feasts. Passover, you know already, but it's like, how come I didn't pay attention to all the other holidays? How did I not know? And so, of course, yeah, he wasn't born on December 25th. And hold on, like, of course, yeah, hold on, how, what, you know? So I'm like, completely freaking out now because my whole religion is like being like, even by guys who, you know, so it happens to be there was a Messianic congregation or, you know, organization who were Jews for JC who put out this video. An attempt to obviously, you know, make it more Jewish, which in all honesty, it probably was more Jewish back when it's in its origins. So that was the first thing that got me going, like, hold on, maybe this whole thing. And I just got so confused after that. So I started ordering books. So now I was like, okay, now I need to know what Islam believes. I need to know what Judaism believes. I need to know what Christianity.
Process of elimination.
Books. Yeah, process of elimination. So I got books at my table. My wife, we just got married. We just had our first kid, you know. So, yeah, Mazel Tov. And she has no idea what I'm doing, but 8 hours a day, I'm going through all these different texts trying to find some type of truth, you know. Between that, yeah, it was my full-time job. I wasn't.
Did she think you went crazy or?
Eventually, she thought I went crazy.
Yeah, okay.
As soon as I started telling her I don't want to keep Christmas and Easter.
You were in Kollel without even realizing
Yeah,
it.
I was in Kollel. I didn't know. I was steiging too. Seriously.
And you weren't getting a check for it.
I would go to bed with my head just like feeling so like I didn't go to sleep until I felt like I was completely confused out of my mind. That was when I went to sleep. Like when I felt like I was completely and I couldn't go on anymore, that's when I went to bed. And so what started to happen was, and I think the reason why Yiddish guys started to point them out. Now, first I went Messianic. That was the first thing about it. So the first 2 years was I went to this, you know, Jews for J is just very known. It's a completely separate, different organization. But I started going to this to the synagogue, and which was a Messianic synagogue, and it was very foreign to me because these guys were very traditional. They took a lot from actual Yiddish guys. Like you walk in, most of the tefillas was in Hebrew. Their art scrolls Sidurim. People had on, you know, talis and, you know, people in shtinders, beautiful Aron Kodesh, Sefer Torah, real Sefer Torah. I think they had one from like even the Holocaust. Like it's crazy. So for me, I thought I walked into Orthodox too. I was like, man, maybe I had it wrong. You know, I'm looking at my phone like maybe this is the wrong place, you know? I had no idea, but everything in there was foreign to me. So after they were done reading from the Haftorah, they also read from the New Testament. So I was like, okay, all right, now.
Well,
I got a lot to learn.
It's also they have a longer shul if you know maybe it's longer if they're going to do the New Testament also.
Right. So yeah, that's one reason why a lot of you are not signing up for it, right? Yeah. But anyway, so I was there for about 2 years, and because I needed to catch up, and this is all new information for me, like all these traditions and everything else, like, you know, I started going on Chabad.org. So I was like, that was like how I was going to catch up with this congregation and understanding what's going on here at all. Like, what's the prayer service? What is shah? And so I was on, and this is what really hit me. This is probably one of the most impactful things that happened to me. There's a documentary on Chabad.org about Shabbos. I think the Rohr family did it. I can't remember Shabbos, an island. I don't remember the exact title. But I watched the documentary. It was like 20 minutes. Now, prior to this, I'm doing Shabbos the way that I knew to do Shabbos, right? Because I only read it from the Bible.
Which was how?
Which was whatever it said in the Bible don't work. So I stopped doing dishes, right? So that's Shabbos.
Everything else.
Yeah. So I have Chazal. I have anything. I just read Tanakh, right? And the reason why I got to that point is because like I did this process of elimination of knowing Christianity wasn't there, and it really came through. Like I say, I was searching. I was spending 3 days, I take a week, 3 days, no food. I was mamish fasting, going out crying from the bottom of my heart. I was crying to Hashem, bloodshot eyes, my eyes were red, crying, begging Hashem for the truth, that he would reveal to me the truth. I was so sensitive. And it was like, the more and more time I kept doing that, spending time with Hashem, it's just like the Navi, you know, I was spending a lot of time in Navi. It was just glowing to me. It was glowing to me. So I naturally fell in love with the Jewish people. I naturally fell in love with Israel. That was just it. and the process is like Islam, it just sort of like, it never spoke to me. It just didn't speak to me. Christianity in its traditional sense already was refuted. It refuted itself. You understand what I'm saying?
So what came from this, I guess, this documentary you watched on Shabbos from Chabad.org?
So what happened was, it was a full-on documentary on how to do Shabbos and the excitement of Shabbos or whatever. And I was like, whoa. I was watching this documentary and I just start crying like a baby. I don't know why. I wasn't like, you know what I'm saying? It was just pure Shabbos, things that we do on the normal, but the way that it was talked about, now this documentary could have been done in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? It was an old documentary, but I'm watching it and I start crying like a baby. And it's such a yearning. I was like, no. So I start going to buy non-kosher challahs from the bakery, and I didn't know anything. I started buying many shevitz and I started like learning about Kiddush and all this other stuff, but it was Shabbos. It was just like seeing the beauty of what Shabbos was, because I grew up in my house. I never sat at a table with my family. Not one time. I never sat at a table with my family and had a dinner. You crazy? We didn't sit down and have a dinner. But to see the beauty of Shabbos was like, I started crying. You know what I mean? I felt like that was something that I was missing. So I started learning on there, and I think it was like slowly but surely, after some time, it just didn't make sense anymore being at this place. And I think the biggest thing for me was that, obviously I started learning, on Chabad.org, and I started going to Chabad on East Side, and I started learning, actual Torah, I started learning halacha and all these other things. It became a big mess to me. And the biggest issue was over there is that, like, as much as, I think the Messianic world is closer to the truth of what Christianity was in its origin, the problem over there was the fact that the whole thing always refutes itself, right? The origin of Christianity and its foundation and its base is Catholicism. It's the Catholic Church, right? Most of the 1,000 denominations of Christianity outside of Catholicism reject Catholicism. So it's like you reject your foundation. And Yiddishkeit, you could be Taimani, you could be this, you could be that. Well, it rejects the foundation. Everybody believes in Chazal. Everybody believes in it. Even people that are conservative or reform, any minhagim or anything they're doing, they're all getting it from Chazal, right? Everybody points back to say that Chazal was, you know what I'm saying? Regardless of whatever their beliefs is, they have a whole thing to work out with Hashem, period. But I'm saying that anybody that believes in Hashem, they also believe in Chazal, So we didn't have as many divisions or breakdowns like that, but it became the power of who to believe. Do you believe in, the church fathers, or do you believe in Chazal? And I felt like they had a much stronger case, for Hashem in the world.
We'll be right back to this episode, but first we want to tell you one way that you can get closer to Hashem this Elul. Yaakov?
Yes. The one way you can get closer to Hashem is by focusing on your davening. And why do we daven? I just heard this recently. I didn't hear it recently.
Who did you hear it from?
I saw it in the White Shul. It was on a plaque.
Which plaque?
Okay, you probably know what I'm talking about. It's a quote from a gadol.
Which plaque? We're in the shul.
By like the base Medrash Minyan, right?
Okay.
Before I knew Minyan.
We're going to check this out, guys.
And it says on the plaque, it says, Hashem doesn't put you in situations in order that you daven. I don't remember this plaque.
I know you're talking about.
Yeah, well, what is it?
You don't daven to get out of trouble. It's from Rabbi Sol Solante or something.
Yes, that is the gadol who says it.
You don't daven to get out of trouble.
Basically, it was saying that
someone
Hashem
please tell us what it says?
Yeah, please tell us. Hashem doesn't give you trouble in order to give you trouble. The whole point of it is that we should be connecting and davening. But what does that have to do with AMR Pharmacy?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So I think the point is like this.
The second way to get close to Hashem this L is to go sign up with AMR
No, it's not
Pharm.
a way, but the same way we want to daven that we're healthy, and we also want to take care of our bodies. We have to make sure that we're good and we're prepared. And
were you in the Olympics this year?
Was I in the Olympics?
Yeah.
Why?
Because that was a stretch.
Oh, I like that.
That was a real stretch.
I like that. I was gonna be, but for like I think I would, for mental health reasons, not be able to.
For the people watching.
take. Maybe. Yeah, I would not be able to.
You get the
mentally
point,
handle
guys.
that.
AMR is just so good that we're discussing it in these lofty terms.
I think this was the worst AMR ad we did so far, and that makes us feel bad. But you know what could make us feel better? If you use AMR Pharmacy. Nachi, what's the number?
848-222-1110. I won't botch that one. That's 848-222-1110. And guys, if you know which line we're talking about in the White Shul, send a picture to either myself, Yaakov, or Meaningful Minutes phone number so we can know it. Thank you and enjoy the rest of this episode.
So you at what point did you get into the Orthodox community?
Right. So what happened was I ended up meeting Rabbi Michael Skoback from Toronto. He does a lot of anti-missionary work. I met him because there was a conference with this congregation I was at. And when I met Rabbi Skoback, I had a lot of questions for him, and he answered them. So it was really strong and powerful. And by that time, I decided, you know what, I'm not going back to this place. So I went back home. I was keeping Shabbos at home. I didn't go there. I davened at home. By this time, I was already davening Shachris and Mincha, everything. So we decided to go to the Orthodox community and go check it out. Now, I grew up there. So all I did was go back to my old neighborhood, And so I started to go check it out. And my wife came to me and she was like, you know what? I want to do Orthodox convert. It was like her, thing. Now, she was not, moving as fast as I was towards this. And she came to me. So I was like, wow. But I started thinking, I don't know any black Jews. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? I didn't even know, can you do that? Like, I didn't, because I never seen. So Hashem arranged for me to meet a black Yid in the store. He was Erev Shabbos, Yaakov London, Master London as he's known. He also does martial arts or whatever he teaches. And I ended up meeting him and he invited us for Shabbos. So we went to his house. And then the next week, somebody else that had seen us, and they invited us. And we started going. And so it was like a matter of time. Like, you couldn't talk to the rabbi about Gerus until you moved into the community. So then we scrambled. We found a place and we moved in. And it was really awesome because...
This is in Seattle?
It's all in Seattle. The Sewell Park area, and which was not easy. So we all had to move in together. It was me, my wife, her sister was also dating by this time she was married to my best friend. We'd all got married, us a year before. And so my best friend since kindergarten, Yosef, he married, my wife's sister. So it was like all four of us. And Baruch Hashem, we had one kid each, and then another kid came, and then we started realizing, hey, we're not going to have any room if everybody keeps having kids around here,
Yeah. And if you're becoming Orthodox, the more kids are going to be coming.
The more kids are going to be coming. So we ended up splitting the places, and we started working with Rabbi Benzikin in Seattle at the Sephardic Shul, Sephardic Bika Cholim over there. And you know what? The truth is that experience was awesome for us, but it was like, it's a reality check once you go from, it wasn't just because Seattle, it's almost anywhere. I've heard this from many different people. Like, you go in with so much fire, you know what I'm saying? And then it's like, everybody else is just born Jewish, so they're not really as excited as you're excited about everything. So you even get over there and then you find, I got to start searching again. It's like, I got to keep searching all over again. So I ended up making a very close connection with the Rabbi Brody, Shmuel Brody, who's now back in Baltimore. But I feel like he gave me a lot of fire. Gave me a lot of fire to see somebody like that as devoted to Hashem and to Yiddishkeit as he was, and and as strong as he was. He was like the only Strimo in Seattle, in a 50, I don't know how many, 200,000 mile radius. There was no Strimo in the area, you know what I mean? And it wasn't just about the Strimo, but he was just mama shit. Just what a yid, Right. What a yid, you know what I mean? To turn you on. And I felt like, when I was really able to build a kesher with him, that I realized okay, boom, this is what I was looking for. You know what I mean?
How'd that feel for you?
It felt so good. It was refreshing, It was really refreshing,
It was such a journey, you fasting, crying.
Yeah. Listen,
to other religions.
It's a constant search, and that's what Hashem wants us to be doing. You know what I mean? That's what Hashem wants us to be doing, is be constantly looking for him, constantly trying to find where he is. That's what they say on the Tzaddikim. When the Baal Shem Tov was constantly asking, okay, Tati, now what? Now what? Now what? You know what I'm saying? And that's where we have to be. And to some degree, I felt like I've had that hidden and buried, but it was inside of me even as a kid. I have no idea where it came from or whatever, but once it was able to be dusted off, I ran and I keep running, you know what I mean? So it's a very, very important thing, it's discussed. I'm learning the Sefer right now by Yam Darkecha. Was written by an anonymous writer. I know he is, but he's anonymous, whatever. But he is based on the teachings of Ichimai Morgenstern in Yerushalayim. Big tzaddik, he's an or and he's a light shlita. And anyway, he's a beautiful, sefer in Darchei Avoda, something that's very, practical for a person. I'm a practical person, you know what I'm saying? You don't understand how hard Gemara is for me. It's not even just like trying to chop the Gemara, it's just like trying to chop like that it was already written in the Shulchan Aruch, how we pass. And then there's another pass. And then if you're Sephardic, Chacham Avadi is giving you all the answers, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like in the whole work of Torah or whatever, like, Hashem, I want to know the answer already. You understand what I'm saying?
Then open
so even the way my approach to Hasidus was, not to say I don't learn, you got to learn Gemara. Okay, obviously I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, but even my approach to Hasidus was, I need to know what to do, right? That's what I want to learn. That's how I ended up Breslov. Like, Rav Nachman's big on what's the actual Eitzah. Here's the Eitzah. Here's what to do. I'm already ready for the Hashem part already. When do I get to, have the Tanakh? When do I get to have the Devekus? When do I get to have the Kirvas Hashem? You know what I mean? So this Sefer was really, really good. So one of the things he deals with a lot of this, Devekus and Tanakh and Avodas Hashem, and being a ger, being someone who came from the outside in, it was that fire of Hashem showing himself to me and revealing himself in the way that he did that brought me closer and brought me closer. So when he turns off that spigot and makes you have to work for it, you at least know what you know what you're looking for, and you know what it feels like, you know what I mean, to feel like I'm in the presence, I'm having a kiss, I'm having some type of devekus, a connection with the Shem. So this Sefer has been really, really good for me because of that. But it's one of those things where Hashem gave us a gift. He gave us a Torah Kadosh. He gave us a pure and awesome emes, and it's for us to have enjoyment in it. It's not for us to not enjoy it, to accept it, only in the derech of it being an old on a sin or whatever. Oh, that's also one derech. But the emes is to always get to a place of this devekus and tanug and avodas Hashem and being that connected.
And listen, you're still doing what you love.
Yeah,
you're singing,
and I'm still doing it.
You're rapping.
Even that is like. This is a level of bittul. Like people are like trying to say like, wow, it's so cool that you're like, I'm being bittul to Hashem. I'll be honest with you. So many times I want to stop. Like even when I came back, I didn't want to do. I was arguing with everybody.
Really?
If I didn't have like this miraculous microphone work that was not working and me testing Hashem, you know what I'm saying? And like having that type of thing, and then going to, Rebbeim that I really was close to that I thought was going to tell me no, not to rap, like whatever. And them saying yes, like it really took a lot for Hashem to get me really back into music and let alone. And then even all the ups and downs of feeling like, I've been doing a lot of outreach, to be honest, to like, and going back to more of a sound that's my sound to try to also and it's exhausting. I'm being honest with you, being exhausting. You know what I'm saying? Like even there's a lot of, awesome people, but there's a massive movement of progressive, and I'm just naturally progressive because I'm black and Jewish, and people like me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that means I'm progressive. I'm not really into all that, but it's almost like, for me, I love music. I love making music, but there's been many times where I'm just like, no, I just want to learn, and you know what I'm saying, and I'm happy with that. I love speaking with Hashem. I love being his Bodhisattva. I love meditating. I love to learn Torah. I love to be at my corner in my little shul in Ovadia, you know what I'm saying? My little Breslov steep over there. And I'll just sit there, you know what I'm saying? I like candles. I spend time with Hashem. This is what I want to do.
What's it like living there?
I love it. I love Beit Shemesh.
Compared to Seattle.
Compared to Seattle, it's no comparison at all. I mean, Seattle has water. Seattle has water. That water at Mount Rainier view, oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But it's not like Beit Shemesh, It's just, it just is what it is. It's the reality of the situation. And any neshama that's the least bit sensitive feels the yerida of getting off a plane in any other country other than Eretz Yisrael, you know what I mean? And being, in environments where it's not even just about being a minority, but the whole muss of the place doesn't scream Yiddishkeit, doesn't scream, you know what I'm saying? So
do you feel like you've arrived? Do you feel like this is your...
No, I'm still going. I mean, I feel like I arrived in terms of like Yiddishkeit. So, it's very interesting because, I always say like this, the difference, going through different religions and, being on a journey of searching, there's two things. There's one way to search where you could search and you're just searching because you have a taiva and you need something else that fulfills that. And so this God doesn't work, so I'll get another one, or you have the search where a person accepts so much of society, so now they don't really believe that the Torah could be as pure and whatever, because society already accepts something else. And I'm so involved in everything society says that, but the way to search is to be looking for something that hits that place of truth, where it brings you to a place of bittul, to where you say that I don't care if it goes against everything I ever known. I'm willing to submit my life to this truth. You understand what I mean? Like, and I want to be there because I'm not gonna have the true comfort. I'm not gonna have the purity of mind. I'm not going to have the menuchas nefesh until I get to that place where it hits that truth.
Right.
There's that, and then the next part is like, in terms of going through all these different journeys, is like with Christianity and Islam. Man, they're waiting on the corner for you. Everybody's waiting for you to come sign up. They want you to come join the team immediately. Everybody's going out. They spend an X amount of dollars to get, they're ready to capture. And there's big pressure over there, right? Because if not, you go to hell. So, like, there's big pressure over there, you understand? Yiddishkeit didn't have the same pressure, you understand? So, going after Yiddishkeit was me really just trying to find, for me, it wasn't anybody signing me up. Nobody was looking
probably
to
pushing you away a little also, no?
Even the push away, you know what I'm saying? Rabbi wasn't so like, yeah, come on, you know what I'm saying? Definitely was not the experience, you know what I'm saying? Ended up, Rabbi Benzikin was like beyond great, became like a father to us, really. But it was definitely not, welcoming. And it wasn't, not in a bad way, but it was just like, nobody was like, yeah, let's, few people. Uncle Yaakov was happy to see us because we were black and he was black too. So it was like, he wanted to help us out, but it wasn't like a thing. So, but I always likened that into like working up to build wealth as opposed to winning the lottery and becoming wealthy overnight, right? Because you lose that money very fast. That's why there's so many bigger, aliyahs and major yeridas in these other faiths, where it's like, even in Yiddishkeit, when you see a person in the lowest of the low, he's still connected to a mitzvah. You understand what I'm saying? He still wears a kippah. He still does some type of mitzvah that even if he's in the worst place, he has some good.
It's not all
That's a Reish Pei base of Lekutei Maran, of like there's some Nakuda Tova in every single Yid, no matter what, where he's somehow connected to his Yiddishkeit. Over there, it's like, once I'm out, I'm out. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So it was like a treasure and that I built up.
I'm curious to ask this question. I feel comfortable to ask it because you're just a very straight up person.
Yeah.
And you don't have to answer if you don't want to. For you, what's your biggest struggle today? Because like you said, you're not finished the journey. We're all never finished. As long as we're alive, we're still on the journey. Like for you today, what's your biggest struggle?
I think it's a very good question. My biggest struggle, one of my biggest struggles is Seder. To have Seder. I'm not, me being religious already is like a joke. You know what I'm saying? I always tell people I'm not religious. I'm just, I'm here. I do things that religious people do, and I do them all the time. I'm not religious. I came here on the Hashem thing, but in terms of like having Seder, because I'm a musician also, like, and I'm an artist together. Most of my graphics I do, I'm very involved in all like my clips. I do the back, most of them I am, but I'm very artistic, and once I start, I never like to stop. Like I'm in this world, a space of creating and art all the time, and I don't want to leave it. You understand what I'm saying? Right. Like, and I like that with anything. Also, too, like when I enter into my world of Hbo Deal, this and that. Also, too, I have horrible time with transitioning and stopping and saying, all right, you have to put this to this. This got to be a gavul, you know. So I feel like for me, that's one of my biggest things. Like I have a problem with is like Seder. So like, you know, certain things that work out. Like I don't run my calendar; someone else runs a calendar, and that makes it easier. So now I see if something's on there, I have to do it. Okay, you know. So it's like certain things of me tricking myself into. But like if it was left to me, never, nothing's ever getting done. You know what I'm saying? So, and everything that gets started and it'll never get done because I never want to stop.
Right.
So it's like Seder's been one of those things I've been really trying to work on.
Something I've been thinking about, I'm very curious about as well. You may have spoken about this on, it could be Twitter or Instagram at some point. You know, being Jewish, being black, it's not the most common thing. Right. You know, how's that experience been for you? Is there a certain way maybe you've been treated that you could say, hey, listen, don't treat me a certain way or don't treat other black Jews a certain way?
Right. I think like, you know, all in all that, if I had to sum up my experience in Yiddishkeit, that's very, very much so not in the top items. You know what I mean? Does it happen? Yes. At one point I would have said I never experienced anything or whatever also too. I even think I was on record saying that, but years later, after living in certain places, Meisharim being one of them, all those other things, and even more so, my kids experience more than I've experienced it. I've sort of like reached a place where, you know, because of the quote unquote celebrity status where and because everybody which what that does is everybody already feels like they know you already. So a lot of conversations that, you know, some black Jew would have had to, whether he's Magaya or not Magaya, is sitting at the table. There's a whole lot of introductions that comes forth because you want to know where he's from or how they get there, whatever. A lot of my story's already out there. So people already feel like they know who I am, you know, but if they don't know who you are, then sometimes that prejudices that people don't even know they have start to come out, you know what I mean? And my kids experience a lot, you know, and even my wife, other friends that I knew, even, you know, it may have been even worse here in New York for the guys that I've talked to that they had those experiences. But I feel like, you know, I was getting a lot of this when these riots were happening, the Black Lives Matter, and people asked me, even from people really asked me, like, what can we do to help the black? And it's like, start with the Gerim and start with the black people that are already Jewish, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Start over there and make sure they feel welcome, you know what I mean? It's just like a crazy a thing that happens. Like my wife, she was at the store the other day and she like goes and gets a book, you know, and she's looking for books for the kids. My wife's really big. She like really wants the kids to have books all the time, and she gets English so she can read it and all that. And so they're like going through examples and all that, and they go Goy, and the Goy is the black family. It's like, you know, right. And so for her, it was just sort of like, well, our kids also need books where they're not going to feel like, you know,
it's 100%,
it's real, like, and it starts with the kids, and it's very, very hard. And because we all get in our own bubble, in our own world, that right now, you know, everybody says like, what is the biggest thing between this conflict between us and the Palestinians is bad PR for the Jews. They have great PR. They know how to play victim. We don't need to play victim, but one thing we have amazing things. We have a diversity in Judaism. The rest of the world doesn't know that. Right. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Like if people understood the diversity and knew that Yiddishkeit was a faith and you know what I'm saying, and not Lakewood, you know what I'm saying? Right. Then they will understand, you know, not that anything's bad about Lakewood, but I'm just saying, but they would at least Lakewood. Understand the diversity of Yiddishkeit, and they would see, you know, something that which they're trying to say is the problem with us. We're not diverse. We don't integrate. We don't, and we actually do have. And I feel like a lot of people have been mistreated. Some people just say things, and the truth is like, I come in with the understanding that things may happen. That's what I had already knew. But my take was always because my thing is always back to Tachlis, back to Emes. Anybody that said anything or has or harboring anything because of the color of my skin or whatever, it's very obvious that they don't have such a shaykhus to Hashem. You know what I'm saying? They don't have such a kasher.
Someone with a shaykhus to Hashem shouldn't be saying those type of things. Like, it makes no sense.
Right. It just doesn't go together.
Even harbor those feelings. It's not Torah based.
Right. And that's easy for me, but like for children, and for people who were not as strong as me and stuff like that. Right. So when my kids were not getting accepted into school, you know, in Yerushalayim, after that, like my phone, my email, like I started hearing so many stories from so many other people who were black and who were getting, and even other people weren't black. Like, everybody's got some disqualifying factor for why they can't, unfortunately, get into school.
Yeah.
But it was happening a lot. And I start to realize, like, wow, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is a real serious issue that I didn't even know because I'm Nissim Black. You know what I'm saying? So I wasn't experiencing it as much as other people. But I think the main thing is it's sort of like we have to get over. It's hard for us, though. It's so hard because everybody has in their image of like, what type of family they want and what type of marriage and what Yiddishkeit is to them and what they want to be able to teach their kids. But the truth is, the emphasis is that it's much bigger than what your dream and what your thought of Yiddishkeit is. It's much bigger than that. And Hashem, there's so many. Leave the black thing out. You know what I'm saying? I always get perplexed on this. You have this guy who his family comes from Lithuania somewhere, whatever, it's Ashkenazi, and you see this, Taimani, a Moroccan guy, and he's, a few shades lighter than me or whatever, and they don't look nothing alike, but they're both 1,000% Yidden.
Wow.
They're 1,000% Yidden. And could be at the same place. You go to Eretz Yisrael, you see guys that can like house it, like even possible, whatever. Yiddishkeit is so big. You understand what I'm saying? And I feel like being concentrated on our own little thing of like, oh, this is Yiddishkeit. So I think the biggest thing is like teaching the children the diversity of Yiddishkeit, because it's not, our diversity isn't like, it's not like what happens in the Goyish world where everybody has a place. It's like, no, all these people are Yidden. All these people have a Shaikus in Klal Yisrael and Hashem and expounding that and the books and different things like that the kids will have the exposure, because we got to learn how to treat each other. I feel like a lot of the issues that we have, almost all the issues that we have, come from of the way that we're treating each other. And you know what? I have a few different people that I've talked to, and there's a few different stories that are national, both people that were Yidden and non-Yidden, right? Where the stories are matching. Ever talked to a person who had a near-death experience? Most of the time that I've heard them, at least from people, or I've read about them or anything, one thing that they're taking the task with when they get upstairs is how they treated other people. How they treat other people. I haven't seen Alona Navas recently, and he said, nobody asked me anything about the tefillin. Nobody said anything about Shabbos. And he was a Chiloni. How I treat other people. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't think people understand, like, how much of the ikr that is more than everything else. We're so focused on the tuffle level, just like we're not focusing on the ikar, that the ikr is going to be, how did you treat other people? That's going to be the main thing. And I think like that covers, the black thing. It covers the, what I'm saying, how we treat each other. It covers the Avos Yisrael thing, everything. Like, people don't understand that at the end of the day, that's going to be. And you see the difference. I went to Gedolim. I went to Rav Chaim. He didn't have a single thought in his head or anything. He was like, your color's your Mila, not your Chisar. I don't think he was just giving me chizik. Rav Chaim really genuinely meant it. I go to tzaddikim. I never feel any of that from tzaddikim. I've had conversations with people who are Talmidei Chachamim, you know what I'm saying? But tzaddikim, that people know that you understand, like, some people like, just a rabbi. I'm not into just rabbi. I want to see a person. My office is Hashem. That's what I do for a living. I do Hashem for a living. You know what I mean? These people, they don't see color. They don't see anything. They see Yidden.
I think it was Beis Shammai or Beis Hillel who said, the whole Torah is about not treating someone the way you don't want to be treated, and the rest is just commentary.
Right. It was Hillel.
Yeah.
Right. When the guy came to somebody wanted to be Megaya, and even in my case, like, I just Gerim, like most sincere Gerim, if you had the conversation, they all felt that something missing. They felt the chisar, and they felt that they weren't where they were supposed to be. And these are Yiddish neshamas. you know, planted in non-Jewish families or whatever, all trying to find their way back to Hashem, you know? And this is why Hashem goes to, you look at it all throughout. I spent a lot of time in Nach, right? I spent a lot of time in Navi. And you see that this is the whole time Hashem is scorning everybody. And look what you're doing to the widows. Look what you're doing to the orphans, right? How many times did he tell us to love the ger? Like Hashem is overemphasizing the things that are most important.
Right.
And what do we see? Shabbos, right? So the Navi comes and says, Hashem doesn't want your Shabbos, your Yamim Tovim. I don't want any of that. I don't want your Korbanos. I wanted you. You don't want that? It's finished, you know? Here comes the destruction of Bayis Rishon, you know, because of the lack of how we're treating other people. It's a big thing, and
big Indian.
We're not focusing on it.
If there's anyone who could talk about it, it's you. You know, sometimes you have like not Gedailah, but you have sometimes like Rabbanim like talking about certain issues that like sometimes they can't. Like they could understand it because people are coming to them, but you could literally speak for it because you are dealing with this type of stuff.
That's crazy. That was fire.
I have an unrelated question that I want to ask, and I don't want to forget it. Your name, Nissim, did you choose it? Like, how'd that come about?
Hashem chose it, really. No, I'll tell you how it happened. It's like I mentioned, my name was Joshua for like 10 minutes, you know. And so I thought, you know, when the time was coming up, we were going to have our Geras, I thought, you know, I have to have a name. Because in order for it to be written on the ketubah, it has to be a name you were known by for some time. I forget what the halacha is exactly. And so I was going through different names. So I think Yehoshua came because I was like, you know, maybe my parents messed up. My name was supposed to be Joshua, whatever. And Nissim came from, I was in a Sephardic synagogue. I'm actually Sephardic. People don't know. Like I actually was Magaya in a Sephardic synagogue. But so when I was there, one of the past presidents or something like that, his name was like Nissim. I don't know. It just rang to me, right? Something was glowing about that name. I have no idea why. But I had a few different names. So finally I settled down to Nissim and Yehoshua, which name. And I went to the shul early and I started davening. And I seen right before Mincha and Arvit, people are going to start coming in. So I grabbed the siddur after I was davening specifically to Hashem on my name. What would my name be? I grabbed the siddur and it said Nissim on it. Belonged to another guy, Nissim Ezos, who belonged, and it was really? And he has siddurim that say Nissim Ezos on it, but this one said just Nissim on it, right? So it was like Hashem was like putting it out there in the clear. This is right after I davened, so I was like, okay, Hashem, you already tell me. Now, what's crazy about it is that I thought that was the story. I thought that was already enough for me. Like that was already for Hashem. So a few years ago, I was by Rabbi, I think it was in Miami, and he was talking about Hanukkah. And he was talking about in Hanukkah, like the whole essence of darkness from like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then he started talking about the month of miracles of Kislev. And I started thinking about, yes, it is the month of miracles. I was born in Kislev. I was born Zion Kislev. That's when I came in. I'm a winter baby. Kislev is a couple of things. Not only we talk about illuminating the light in the darkness, right? It's a time of miracles and Nissim, but it's a dark time. It's a dark time. I'm usually the darkest yid in the room. You understand what I'm saying? Nissim Black, right? This is a Nissim during the blackness in the Choshek. I started seeing the whole entire thing that Hashem, he pre-planned the whole entire thing, you know? And, you know, I always say as a joke, but, you know, it's a month of donuts also, too. I could you know? So
well, you lost a lot of weight now.
Yeah, I'm not eating any donuts. So I started to realize I felt like, you know, really this was always my month. So this past Purim, and think about it because a few days after Purim, I celebrated, you know, our day, my new birthday, which was Yud Zayin Adar, which is 3 days after Purim, also the month of miracles. So the time when we say Al Nissim, also too during this month. So I started thinking, well, at least on Purim we do. But so this is also, you know, when Hasidus talk about Adar, we all know Adar is a time of Nissim. If we want anything big for Klal to happen, and Amazal in the time of in Adar is huge. So Yud Zayin Adar is when we were Magaya, which is a few days after Purim, which was a time when a lot of Gerim started to come into Yiddishkeit after they witnessed the miracle of Purim, you know? So I feel like Hashem planned the whole thing, and I feel like it was all, you know, it was all b'sheret, really.
We have a few more questions, and then we're going to talk about what you're up to now. But we ask a few questions at the end to all our guests, and Nachi's going to start it off.
Okay.
If you could sit down with one person from history who's no longer alive, spend some time with them, talk to them, who would it be?
That is a great question. Right? Yeah. The answer I'm supposed to say is Rebbe Nachman because I'm a gun hole breast lover.
Okay. So you got that answer. Now you get another person.
If no breast lovers were listening.
And so if nobody was listening.
Yeah, what's the real answer?
The real answer would definitely be David Melech.
Really?
I have a lot of questions. I would talk to David Melech.
He's right over here.
I would ask David Melech. I would talk to him about the call of Nagina and Devekis, of how he was able to use that to bring him to Kedusha, but I mean to Devekis. But I would also like to ask him about how he was able to balance his heart. On one level, you had David Melech, who he was the most sensitive, he's just such a hergish in feelings for other people at one time, and at the same time he'll turn around and he'll wipe somebody out in a second. You know what I'm saying? For violating Hashem's laws. It's like the perfect balance between, like this Yira and Ahava and just like straight, his Gevurah and Chesed was like intact. You know what I'm saying? Almost so crazy where you're just like, hold on, how's this same guy like crying about this and so this, and then the next thing he's like beheading somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like
Batman and Joker.
Right. So I will ask him.
For the record, Nachi just said David Melech, Batman and Joker. Is like Batman and Joker.
No, I would love to sit with David Melech and ask him these questions on how to have that balance. You know what I'm saying?
That's really beautiful. I'm particularly more excited to ask you specifically this question because I feel like you have an interesting relationship with all the mitzvahs. Is there one particular mitzvah to you? It's more important, or you feel it defines you more so than the others?
I've never been asked in that way, so now you're making me really think. I would probably say that I love the most is, well, if you consider a mitzvah to be to tefillah, I would consider that. But I say talus and tefillin, There's just something about talus and tefillin of just being like wrapped up in Hashem, you know what I'm saying? Like having a physical representation of that is big for me, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so I feel like that is probably the mitzvah, like, like I told you I already have trouble with Seder transitions, like I hate having to put away my talus and tefillin. Like I don't like it. It's like really like every time I have it on, like I just dread having to put it back inside my talus.
You probably love Rosh Hashanah then.
Yeah. Rosh Hashanah. I love having it on. But Baruch Hashem, so I think that's probably what I feel most connected to.
What would you say is the worst advice someone ever gave you?
I don't even know if I want to say that. I had a cousin who I would say this, when I first initially started changing my life, I was going in actually Christianity, I think at that time. No. I think this was like coming out of it, going into Yiddishkeit, maybe in Messiah. I remember a cousin of mine saying that, I talked to, your sister and, I really think like you're making a mistake, man. You're supposed to be out here in these streets getting money, Like I was just like, what? Like, what I'm saying? Like most people would be happy for you, like changing your life. And like, it's like, no, man, you're like I was throwing away my life and I should have been like in the streets, doing illegal activity. And like, you know what I'm saying? Like that was probably the worst, like, sit down and let's have a moment. That's the best answer
to that question. That's the worst advice.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible advice.
It's pretty horrible advice.
Wow.
For sure.
So we do want to talk to you about what you're up to now, what you want to plug. I mean, I know you have I listened to some of it. You have a podcast of your own now.
Podcast, yep, called The Deal.
So tell us what you're up to now.
So I have the podcast called The Deal, which I'm interviewing people, which is like really, it's like really awesome to be on the other side of it. I enjoyed being interviewed also, but it's like being on the other side of it and asking other people questions and being able to hear the inspired, to be able to be inspired and feel that.
Put people on the hot seat.
Put people on the hot seat.
Kudos to you. You do a very good job at it, because
thank you.
I told Nachi before this, I said, like, we discussed before, like, is this interview going to be harder for us, easier? I'm like, no, aside from getting interviewed, you do a very good interview yourself. It's very fluid and it was very easy to listen to.
Thank you very much. So yeah, I think the biggest thing with it is like I'm going kind of out of my box. Like I'm interviewing people that I generally probably wouldn't even have anything. I wouldn't think that I had anything in common with. Also, I'll do gamba, but right now it's just been sort of like. People that I only knew about a little bit, or I just wanted to know, and even talking about subjects which are even hard for me to talk about, like anti-Semitism. On some level, it's hard for me to talk about them because, like, not only because I didn't grow up, like, I just don't like. I'm just like so in this world of like Hashem's gonna fix everything, guys. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
And it's just because it's my way. It's not like one of those things where I'm like a guy where I'm like. Trying to ignore the physical world or anything like that. It's just one of those things like the way I've seen results in my life is when I mavata myself to Hashem, he fixes it. Really, when I dive in on things and I'm really in that place, it's like, which takes as much work as it does to like do some type of hishtadlus. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like to really like research and do all that other stuff like that or whatever. And like when I'm talking about like the hishtadlus of avodah, like crying out to Hashem to fix stuff, like I really am. I'm serious about that. Like, and it's a work. It's work. It's not like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. At the tefillah, I said some tehillim, or I went to this cover that. Like mavata myself for days. I've been days and sitting in complete tefillah and with Agmas Nefesh on something. I've done 17 hours of crying to Hashem on the kever of Arizal. Like I'm serious. So I'm talking about real voda. So instead of saying, well, that's just not my way, or things like I'm always intrigued to figure out what gives people drive, to fight back or to be, somebody that is what's the proper word? Advocacy. Like what drives you? How do you know what I'm saying? What makes you? So I'm also interested on the other way. I know it's not my way, but I'm interested to know how people become a Baki and you know what I'm saying? And this, for the sake of, fighting. So I'm having very interesting conversations with people. On the podcast, which is dope. I really appreciate it.
I have a suggestion for you. I would love. I mean, it's your podcast. You can choose. I would love to hear a conversation between you and your wife.
Oh, wow.
She's been on this. She's part of. She is the journey with you, and
right.
It could be an interesting conversation. I don't know if that fits.
She doesn't like to. I had a feeling anything publicly.
Right. You're the.
I just honestly, another thing I'm working on right now is an HBO deal that just came my way.
No way.
And the tough part is like they really want my wife to act in this series that she's not. Like my wife is like, we were on the Today Show and it took like so much, like I had to talk to rabbis, I had to do everything to get her to show pictures of the family. You know what I'm saying? So let alone she's a very private person. Yeah, I respect it. We're two different type of people, but it's that I'm working on I'm working on writing a musical for a play that is off Broadway. That's unnamed right now, so I'm working on that.
I think you should go with that name though, unnamed.
Huh? Everything's unnamed right now.
And then music also.
And then music. I'm working on brand new music. Like I'm at a place where the music, like I'm trying to get back to this, like this. It's very hard because, like I told you, like I'm always like trying to get to a place, and I feel like I'm being driven somewhere else. Like I have to do something. And like right now, I'm just like, all right, I want to get into this panini place right now with music that, where it's blending all my worlds together. You know what I'm saying? So the soulful and the with the beats and that's knocking. But I want to do something that like I don't know exactly where I'm going, but I got like 4 or 5 songs and I'm like, all right, this is the direction. I've been like searching, like where is it? Because I want to hear my music. I want to get into that place. So.
Well, Nissim Black, thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
It's really very powerful.
I really appreciate it.
And really insightful, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys.
Hope you enjoyed that episode with the one and only Nissim Black. Nachi, was this the first time you met him?
I think so.
Yeah?
It was. Yeah, it was the first time I met him.
So I think in like 2013, I saw him in Meisharim. He was already living there, maybe it's 2014. And I went over to him, and obviously I was a little starstruck. And I'm like, hey, Nissim, I just want to let you know that I'm a big fan. And he looked at me, and I think he's gotten this before. He's like, there's no big fans. I don't have fans, only brothers. So I said, okay, Nissim, I'm your big brother. And it was just
go clean your room.
It was just a little like introspection into like what type of person he was then, and just to see where he is now. It's just amazing. Like he's the real deal. He really is.
Yeah. Someone asked me this morning about which episode putting out this week. I said, I think Nissim Black. Is he the real deal? I said, yeah, no, he really is. He's an awesome guy, and I think he's clicking on all levels spiritually. His Yiddish guy. It's inspiring. Amazing, yeah. It's inspiring to see. So glad you guys are able to see a little bit more about Nissim Black. Go ahead, leave a review on this podcast.
Yeah,
give us
please.
5 stars, or message Apple to make a 6-star for meaningful people. Because why not?
And also, we would both love to have more Gayrim on the show, whether they're as famous as Nissim Black, or some people have incredible stories of like how they joined the fold. So
everyone's got a story, and we love hearing it.
If you have a suggestion, you go to meaningfulpeoplepodcast.com, and there's a suggestion tab. And yeah, we Baruch Hashem have so many, and we're trying to get to everyone, and Baruch Hashem we will. So don't forget to
brush your teeth. Ciao.
And why are you ending so quickly? Don't forget to get us that quote from Rabbi Sol Salandra. Go for it, Nafi.
That's all I got.
I'm saying the ciao. Go for the ciao.
Ciao.